The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the QATV staff or board of directors. QATV, in compliance with FCC regulations, is prohibited from exercising control over the content of independent, member-produced public access programming.
Hi, thank you so much for tuning in to my new show, Coffee Break Chats with Jen. I'm Jen Ormond, and I'm going to be the host of this brand new show, and I'm so excited to be here. This show will be highlighting lots and lots of local businesses, nonprofits, and pretty much anyone else who wants to take a coffee break and chat with me. I'm going to be going behind the scenes and finding out basically why people went into business or why they do what they do, and I'm excited to have this time here. I'm a little bit nervous today for my first show because my special guest is actually my husband, my business partner, and my best friend. We kind of know each other really well, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to chat freely and not bore everyone to death with our really long story. We kind of wanted to talk about, we are local businesses. We are local business owners. We have been doing what we do for 26 years as of next month. So I brought my husband here today to chat with me about why we opened our business and why we do what we do. So this is my husband, Donny Ormond.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here. So I did some math this morning. Actually, how many years have we been married? You already read this.
1999, so that's 23 years.
Yeah.
That's right.
And we were on the 10-year plan prior to that, so we have been together for 33 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive.
I'm not going to tell anyone how old we are, so people can do their own math, but I'm feeling pretty old.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for being here today. And so of the two of us, I tend to be a little bit more chatty. So I thought that maybe I could get our story from my husband's perspective. And I was going to ask you a couple of questions if you're up for that.
Okay.
So Coffee Break Cafe, did I already say that? That's the name of our business. And why did you go into business, Donny?
It seemed like a good idea at the time. So, right, we were pretty young and naive and didn't know a lot about business, obviously. You were there for that. You know, it's a hard lesson to learn sometimes when you start off in business not knowing a lot about business. So, at the time I just thought, why not take a chance now? A lot of people never take that leap of faith, and they don't have the confidence to take a chance. And I think that's probably the main reason why I said yes. And obviously that you were doing it too, and you're inspirational, so I really like that.
I love that you said yes. So I was pressuring you a little bit, maybe?
Well, maybe I'm not as optimistic 100% of the time as you are. You're very optimistic. Sometimes I approach things with some degree of trepidation. So my initial instinct a lot of times is to be cautious. And starting a business is just a giant risk. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have anything to fall back on, that would be catastrophic. So I think that at the time we all had other jobs, and we thought we could pull this off, and that's what we decided to go ahead and run with it. There's plenty of mistakes to be made along the way. Sometimes it's better to just jump in.
As I say all the time, I make mistakes every single day of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Still do. I make lots of them. Do you want to get into like why coffee? Why Coffee Break, and why our first location?
From my perspective, it was more about that we saw a need, fill a need, as they say, and that's why we thought we could really use something a little different. And especially in New England, where we didn't have a lot to choose from coffee-wise, and since we were really into drinking coffee, why not make that our thing and make it better than everyone else if possible?
So I know I hear every single day of my life, I feel like, but you're in Quincy, you're in the home of the first Dunkin Donuts. I mean, what were you thinking opening up a coffee shop in the city of the first Dunks? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that was it came up a lot. I don't think we didn't look at that as an issue at the time. Like I said, we had that that niche that we were going for. So I thought it really didn't matter what everybody else was doing. We needed to sort of innovate somewhat and change up what was the norm. So I think that was our advantage that we had, and we were small too.
What was our advantage? What was our niche? What was Coffee Break's niche?
Well, looking back on the entire picture, I think that iced coffee is definitely the focus at Coffee Break. I mean, we are in New England, so iced coffee is a big thing, but a lot of times you can't really get a decent cup. It doesn't translate for some places that serve coffee, and I think that for us it was a priority.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I think we excelled somewhat.
Why do you say we're in New England and iced coffee is a big thing? Is this a known thing? And I'm serious, I don't know.
I think, yes, I think it's the strange fact that New Englanders like iced coffee, and it doesn't matter if it's a day like today where it's 6 degrees out, they still drink their iced coffee, and lots of it.
See, I remember back then going to different coffee shops and having them look at me like I was crazy when I would order an iced coffee in February, and they would take hot coffee and pour it over like 3 cubes of ice and a hot cup, and I mean, that was one of the reasons why I felt strongly that we needed to fill that void and make like intentional iced coffee year round and make it fresh and delicious and make it well.
Right, yeah. The consistency is definitely key.
Yeah.
If not, I mean, obviously some things about our business is seasonal, but for, by and large, iced coffee is not one of those things. We still sell quite a lot, as a part of our profile.
I think one of the really good ideas that we had early on as well was mixing the coffee, like bartender style. I'm doing this. Can anybody see me? Yeah. You take the sugar and we pour a little bit of hot coffee in it and melt it really well and then mix it so that when I know before we opened our own business, I would order an iced coffee and I'd stick my straw in, and in the bottom there'd be like this much sugar at the bottom of the cup, and you're like sucking granules of sugar in your mouth, and not a fan.
Right. Very true. I think, yeah, that's one of the big pluses of what we do. And yeah, to differentiate and innovate, like I said, like if you can figure out even a small thing like that, like making sure that the sugar is melted, or making sure that customer service is going really well. Like these are the things that I think a lot of times we miss out on in life, that we don't get that experience. We don't get what we want, and we maybe don't get it with a smile, and I think that's important.
It's the most important, for sure.
Right.
People are coming in and they're waiting in line, and they're handing they're paying for something. They should receive that with a smile. I totally agree, and it should be the way that they like it.
Right.
So, first location was in the Wollaston section of Quincy. What made you decide to do that?
We were looking for a location before we had the idea first, and then we needed a location. So right, we were driving around with a real estate agent, and we said, you know, as we were driving by, we said, what's this for lease sign over here? And they kind of ignored it and said, don't worry about that. We're going to check out this other one. And we said, we want to see that no matter what. So it turned out to be that serendipitously we just happened to be there, and that was the location that started us rolling. It took a little extra effort to get it cleared out and up to speed, but
I wish I had a pen. I want to put that down in quotations. A little extra effort.
right.
In other words, that place was a wreck.
Right.
And it took a long time and a lot more money than we thought to renovate that and turn it into a coffee shop. I also think it's funny. Sorry, I'm supposed to be asking the questions, but I think it's funny that when a new person comes into Coffee Break and they train at our first location versus our second, third, fourth, and fifth, like how drastically different they are, because we learned so much from the mistakes that we made each time we've opened a new location.
Right.
So
That is definitely one of the more difficult aspects of starting a business. I think that whatever your startup capital estimate would be, you want to go very heavy on that, because you never know what's going to come out along the way.
and something will come up.
Right.
And lots of somethings will come up. So let's stick with the early days for a few. So did you sit down and write a business plan?
No, we did not write any sort of a business plan, which is probably a big mistake in a lot of people's eyes, especially in the banking industry. They don't want to hear that, but people have started businesses probably with a lot less resources than to have, a loan and a credit card and whatever other, family member may have loaned us money along the way to get up and running. But I think it's still it's worthwhile to put yourself into that position and get uncomfortable somewhat and really make the effort to go for your goals.
Mm-hmm. And how many locations do you have now?
5. Yeah.
And how many locations has the company opened over the last
7?
26 years? God, you're good,
Right?
right? No, is that right? No, you're wrong.
Did we have an 8th one?
I'm not supposed to correct a guest, but
I think I may have forgotten one then.
Braintree, Holbrook, North Quincy. Does that make 8?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Are there any more?
I think that was it.
Which do you prefer, opening a location or closing a location?
Well, closing a location is my favorite thing to do, because it's it's an expensive proposition to sign a lease and to have the lease fall out from under you when you can't renew a lease because you need more time. That's pretty frustrating when you think that you're able to keep your business going and the landlord has other ideas. That's somewhat discouraging. So I'm definitely more into opening than closing.
Yeah, I only asked that because I mentioned closing locations, and I think I get instant anxiety. It is so much work to close a location. But luckily in our business, we haven't closed any locations because of bad business. It's just been a bad lease or a bad decision, or
the building had to come down.
building had to come down, or your landlord wants to open a coffee shop in your space, like, whatever. stuff happens, right?
True.
And all of those, I won't call it a mistake, but all of these things are learning lessons, and we've learned from that, and I think that's important, because every time we make a mistake, we figure out how can we never do that again.
Right.
Right. Back to the business plan, though, I kind of wanted to throw that out there, because I do think that I get asked all the time, like, can I pick your brain? I was actually working out last night, and there was a man next to me, and we started chatting, and he's looking to open up a business in Quincy, and had all kinds of questions. And I think that as far as the business plan goes, it's lengthy and time consuming and awful, but it's worth it. It's worth it to do it, and it's also worth it to do the what if scenario. You know, what if, I don't know, I break my leg? Will my business still be able to run? Or, you know, where do I want to be in 5 years? I think that those things do matter, and even if it's not like a professional business plan that you're going to submit to a bank, which is also a really good idea, I do think it's good to go over it. I think that we ended up writing our business plan 2 years in, right? It was like after we opened up our second location.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. We met with some mentors from the SBA, and then kind of backed ourselves into the process that we should have started prior. But I don't know. I think that for me, if we had started off by going to the SBA and submitting a business plan and not jumping in immediately, it probably would have taken so much longer to get up and running. We were young and impatient, so we said, we don't need that.
Yeah, and I think everybody hated our location as well. I mean, there were bets from neighbors on the street on how long we were going to last for, and because they just thought it was a bad location on a side street. And yeah, overall, I think just about everybody we knew told us don't do it.
Right.
So high five for not listening to everybody.
Right. Let's not listen to the naysayers.
So you said you said you have 5 locations. How many locations are you hoping to open?
I don't have a goal in mind yet. I think that what we have now is somewhat difficult to manage, so everything over what we have now, we're going to have to really consider what it's going to take it to another level, I think. Obviously, it would be nice to have the ability to repeat what we do in multiple locations and do that efficiently, but it's very hard to manage even one business in the, you know, for most types of businesses. To multiply that really does takes a lot more energy and effort to do.
Mm-hmm. Has the pandemic affected your business?
Not even a little bit.
Our business. I know I can't decide if I'm saying you or our, so our business.
Right. No, it was pretty catastrophic in the beginning when this whole thing started happening. We thought it was the end of all business pretty much. We ended up losing 3/4 of our staff, actually more than that, and we weren't able to have, you know, the capacity of customers coming through, and not that they were out buying cups of coffee anyway. A lot of people were all locked down at home. So what ended up happening was that our product mix shifted. Obviously, you know that we had to ship a whole lot of coffee to people so that they could make it at home. And that was one of the big transitions that we weren't sure how we were going to make that happen, how we could float what we had and keep it afloat, and then add on these other layers of what it would be a deterrent from getting somebody through the door just to get a cup of coffee. So, right, it did. Everything slowed down so fast. But on the flip side of the coin, I think it came back relatively quickly too. We were pretty fortunate that once some of these lockdowns eased up, we did see a lot of the regular customers coming back, not to full capacity, but
we're not even close.
It was encouraging.
Yeah, it was for sure, and I'm so grateful for our crew and our customers, but we're not even close to where we were pre-pandemic. But I mean, we're still in the middle of it, or we're still in it anyway. Hopefully, it's close to the end. But
right.
Yeah, that was really stressful. Putting spacers in the store and plexiglass, and do we wear gloves? Do we not wear gloves? And we're in 3 different cities and towns, and every Board of Health had a different criteria, and that was stressful. We went from, you said a percentage of our staff, we went from 70 employees to 19 in about 2 weeks time. So we had to cut our hours because we didn't have anybody to work at night. And yeah, that was, I'm getting stressed just talking about that. And simultaneously, we were closing down one of our locations that we had been in for 22 years. Remember, we had pods, and it was like, I forget what day of the week it was that like everything got shut down, but we had the pods delivered like on that Monday, and let's just say they made the announcement to close everything down on Thursday, and we were like, are they going to come take our pods? Because we hadn't finished like getting all of our furniture out of that location. And so, yeah, we opened 2 locations during the pandemic.
Right.
Which is,
but
stress.
The leases had been signed
Yes.
prior to that, so we were sort of held to that.
Deep breath.
Right.
Let's relax a little bit. And another thing you said too that changed during the pandemic is like all of a sudden we were getting like hundreds of orders to be delivered, and for the first time ever we ran out of coffee by the pound bags. Remember, it was like we have like giant cases of them, and we ran out. We ran out of a lot of things.
For sure. We still do.
Yes, we do. Can't get everything you need to run a business these days.
Right.
All right, well, we won't get into that too much. I guess my next question is, would you do this all over again?
Yes, I think so. Now I definitely feel better that I'm better equipped to say, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do that again. Let's take a chance. Because I would rather take the chance than to live with regret of never having tried at all. So, I believe the statistic is that 9 times out of 10 an entrepreneur fails, but what makes them an entrepreneur is that they're willing to try 10 times so that they find that one time when they actually do succeed, they don't get discouraged. Fortunately for us, I think that we were in that small percentage that actually made it through. The failure rate for food service is very high. Mm-hmm. We've seen so many come and go that it can be nerve-wracking to wonder, how is the coffee market going forward. At the moment, it sounds like we're going to be looking at some pretty serious shortages in coffee itself. Worldwide, it's becoming an issue. These things, they do make me nervous that are we going to be able to, self-sustain? But then I think it's better to still have your, somewhat of a control over your destiny. And that's what I think small business and entrepreneurship, it really affords you. You can really take control. You don't have to listen to exactly what the guidelines. If they're too rigid in your job, then you could just say, all right, well, I'm the boss, so I'll just change those guidelines.
Mm-hmm. Change it up as you go. Another question that I get asked all the time, and you touched upon this earlier, was what differentiates you from the big box stores out there? We are in the heart of, there must be 6,000 or 7,000 Dunkin Donuts in Quincy, Just kidding. It feels
Right.
like it.
No, there's a lot.
Yeah, and there's a couple Starbucks, I think. But either way, what differentiates you from the big guys, would you say? You already mentioned about our niche, right?
Right, yeah. Right, it's not just the fact that we serve iced coffee, but I think that we definitely pay more attention to detail on a lot of things that, and we would prefer to spend more money on the products that we take in that we're going to use, because we care. We have what's considered specialty grade coffee, which the short version of that is it just means it's free of a lot of things that could detract from the flavor of coffee, like mold or insect damage or bacteria. There's all kinds of things that can happen along the way if coffee's not handled right and if it's not of a decent quality. So I think that there's a small percentage of the coffee that's produced in the world that's considered specialty coffee, and it has to meet those specifications to be graded as such. So I think that that's one of the main things. I find myself having a hard time if I'm drinking coffee at, if I'm away and I don't have my own coffee. I find that a lot of times I'm disappointed in the coffee that I get. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are great coffee shops out there, and we usually find them when we can, but I think I've come to the conclusion that I'd rather not even drink coffee at all if it's not going to be, a pleasurable experience. So I guess that would be the main thing, I think, is that you need to have the right ingredients in order to make something that's decent. And I think that's what you did say, differentiate, right?
Yeah.
That's what probably would be the thing that differentiates us mostly, is that you can't get, if you're a large chain, you kind of have to deal with like the commercial grade coffee just because there's not enough of the specialty grade coffee available. So again, that gives us a little bit of an advantage that we can bring in a better quality coffee because we're small.
I think when you say commercial grade, most people don't know what that means. So do you want to compare that to something or tell us?
Well, it's pretty much what's left over from coffee production. There's certain coffees that are grown and processed such that their quality is very high, and then if the country of Brazil produces, they're the largest coffee producer in the world, 99% of what they produce is going to be that commercial grade coffee. There maybe 1% of Brazilian coffee could be even considered specialty grade. So that's what I think really makes it makes a difference, is that the rest of the coffee world that doesn't have those kind of checks and balances in place that make sure, like, if some of these beans ended up having an insect infestation, but they'll use it anyway. That's the kind of thing that would end up in like the commercial grade world. And a lot of these giant companies they'll roast thousands of pounds at a time. They'll buy 750,000 pounds at a time. I mean, when they process coffee, they sweep more off the floor than a company that we use to roast coffee. Like, that's what they maybe roast all year is what that other company throws away.
Wow.
By volume.
Yeah, we should probably clarify that, like, if coffee beans, you said, have an insect infestation, they roast it, so it's still sanitary, and it just
right.
takes
like
away from the flavor.
You could theoretically eat a piece of fruit that had insect damage. You could cut the piece of insect damage off of it and still eat it, right?
Okay. So what's your favorite thing about your business?
Right now, I think that I'm kind of enjoying just the flavors and stuff of some of the stuff that we serve. I think that we've gotten some kind of new and interesting stuff along the way. it's just to change it up, even like seasonally, and like I was kind of really enjoying those the optimized drinks. I sometimes during the day I'll have, you know, my 8th cup of coffee, and then I'll say, all right, maybe it's time to try something else. So I try different things, and we seem to have, and thanks to you in large part, obviously, you find all kinds of interesting things. And
Thank you.
I like to try new things. I'm enjoying that we've been able to explore new stuff. Partially because some other thing, if one door closes, another door opens, we've lost some things along the way too, because of, you know, certain distributors and products just aren't around anymore. So we have
they couldn't
find new things.
They couldn't survive the pandemic.
Right.
I think that one of the things that we didn't cover is I don't remember what year it was that we were in business, but we sat down and said, you know, when we first opened, our first location, we allowed smoking indoors.
Right.
It's so funny to think that we did that, but I feel like after the second location, we sat down and said, like, all right, you know, at home, you know, we recycle, we compost. We were pretty like earthy, crunchy, organic at home, and then and at work, it didn't reflect our values, I guess, and we made a decision that I want to say it was after we opened the second location that we, going forward, every possible choice that we could make would reflect our values. So we started recycling very early on. We started composting very early on, and we made like decisions to do business with other local businesses that had similar values, which I think that's kind of cool, because I've been on vacation. I'm down the Cape in particular, and you know, I've had a plastic water bottle or something recyclable, and I've gone into a business and been like, hey, where's your recycling barrel? And I'm always shocked that they don't have one, or that they don't, and that's an extra expense that we pay for, and I feel that's really important. I know that when I am going out to any business and spending money, I want to make sure that, you know, the money is being spent the best way possible that is going to affect the environment and the local community. And, you know, I think that we also give back a lot to local fundraisers. And I said I think. I know because I you know, I say yes or no. But I think that stuff matters, you know, giving back to the community that keeps you in business, and you know, doing the very best that you can to the environment, because, you know, that keeps you alive.
Sure, yeah. These are all valuable when it comes down to, yeah, helping out whenever possible in your community is definitely important. I agree with that. And yeah, I guess you're right. We did kind of have some of these things before it was mainstream, so that's very interesting.
We were cool and hip.
Up, right?
Our kids would cringe, and they're going to cringe when they hear that I said cool and hip on TV. But that's okay. So, anything else you'd like to add or ask or chat about before I get into my final question?
All right. Where do you see the company going as far as having X amount of locations?
I agree with you in terms of like the last 2 years have been so stressful that I'm like not ready to even think about another location. It would have to be like the absolute, you know, best of everything. And we have such a staff shortage. There's just so many shortages. I feel like it's like we came out of this pandemic, or we're starting to come out of it, and then it's just like I can't hire anybody. We can't get all the products that we want, and everything we touch is just so expensive, and I hate increasing our prices. So I want to just like breathe and be where we are and like catch up if, I'm not even gonna say if, just catch up and just like, I don't know. We have like 2 locations that are, brand spanking new, but anyway, yeah, I don't know. I am not looking past like right now. I am living in the moment and just trying to make the best of it.
Fair enough.
I think I got like a little, was it PTSD or something? I can't, just talking about the last 2 years stresses me out.
Right. You and about 100 million other people.
I know. I know. We're not alone, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do the show. I want to talk about what small businesses people who have small businesses or nonprofits. This has affected so many people, and I think there's some really good stories to tell. So one of the things I'm going to do on the show is I'm going to ask each guest to either, they get to choose, they can teach me something, they can make me laugh, or we can play a game. So, and if they choose play a game, I get to choose the game. The other 2 things they get to choose. So I asked my husband, Donny, here, what would you like to do?
I originally I thought I was going to say teach something, but I think we learned enough today for the most part. So maybe we should play a game. Are you ready?
Well, the game that I brought would require a camera person to come in and like go in on the on the phone. So I don't think that that's an option for today.
Okay.
But I will if you'll come back. I have a much better game that doesn't require any fancy camera work or anything. How about I have an idea, and you don't have to go for this at all, but I do get, and why can't I make coffee at home taste as good as it is when I buy it in the store? Do you want to take a stab at that, or
Sure.
too
Yeah.
boring?
Yeah. That's probably, it can be boring, can get kind of nerdy.
I hope we're
and
not putting people to sleep here.
Yeah, right. But so I think that if you have the right, you start with good coffee, good quality coffee. You have to have water that's pretty transparent. It doesn't have any foul taste or odor. So like filtered water is the best idea. And then you have to kind of understand the way that coffee works, that there's like 3, I'm going to use the scientific terms. There's time, that's science, right? Mm-hmm. Temperature and turbidity.
Oh, goodness.
Which is, right. You can think of it as agitation. You know what?
Oh, yeah,
if you're
okay.
going to spin something around in a washing machine, that's turbidity. That's the clothes getting clean. But for coffee, the things that you want to take into consideration, you need to make sure that you have the water at the right temperature. You want to use the right grind of the coffee, so that if a particle of coffee is rather large, it has to stay in contact with the water for longer. If it's very small, it stays in contact for a short period of time. Otherwise, if it stays in contact with the water too long, it releases a bitter component. And then if the temperature is not right, you could also, if the temperature is too high, you can release some other like chemically and astringent flavors too, which are undesirable. So the short version of this is that if you were using your Mr. Coffee at home and you had the coffee ground for auto drip, that's correct, and it should take about 3 minutes to make the pot of coffee from start to finish. And hopefully the Mr. Coffee has that ability to spray the grounds so that it agitates them as it's making the coffee. And that's what the auto drip should give you, a good quality drink at home. And you also, obviously, I forgot to mention, you need to use the right amount of coffee per water. The ratio, that has to be right as well. But if you can get those things right and have the temperature and the right grind for the job, then I think you can make a decent pot of coffee at home. For me, personally, I prefer to use the French press at home, which is not anything like what we use at the coffee shop. But with a French press, I find that it gives you a little bit of extra mouth feel in the coffee. It's almost like it has a certain grit to it, which not everybody likes, but I kind of like it. And the fact that you can use a very coarse grind, you can control the amount of time that the water stays in contact with the coffee. I would choose to leave it to steep for at least 3 to 4 minutes before I put the plunger down in the French press. And for me, that gives me the best flavorful cup of coffee at home, minus an espresso machine, which I can't really keep on the counter because my wife would get angry because it takes up too much space.
Wow,
right?
That is just rotten of her.
Because I really like espresso, but that adds another aspect to that one more thing that if you have an espresso machine at home and you're and you're discouraged by it, I'm not surprised, because once you add the element of pressure to those other elements I was talking about, everything can go really wrong. So that's when you really have to think about what you're doing and probably watch a bunch of YouTube videos to get you up to speed. Because with making espresso, especially at home, without the proper equipment, is going to probably yield just disastrous results. So, yeah, I don't recommend for people using an espresso machine at home, because it's discouraging unless you buy a really expensive one. So for me, I'd say that, yeah, I would use the auto drip or French press, and hopefully, yeah, that would give you a good cup of coffee.
I think too, once you get the right measurements and you have the right clean water and everything's at the right temperature, you can make a good cup of coffee at home. You know, I feel like I hear that all the time, but it is possible, as you just explained. Right.
But it seems like the mistakes that I hear, at least if I overhear somebody asking questions and I jump in at the coffee shop, I'll hear that they do forget, they'll skip steps or maybe not pay attention to certain steps. Even like something like iced coffee, where the woman that I overheard talking about iced coffee, she takes her hot coffee, sticks it in the fridge, and she says it just tastes awful. And I think that, like a lot of food items, if you start with something hot, you need to cool it down to room temperature first, and then put it in the refrigerator after that, and that will preserve more of the flavors that you want. Just like the point earlier you made about pouring hot coffee over ice, it's never a good idea.
It's not good. It does not taste good.
No.
Well, that was amazing. I learned something. What was the word you used? The word for
turbidity.
Turbidity. All right.
Is a word.
See, you taught me something.
It is a word.
I think you taught us all something, and I appreciate that. And for those of you who know us, look at that. My husband, you talked the whole time. Everyone says, oh, Donny never says anything. Well, you had a lot to say, and it was really great. And I know you're crazy busy today, and I appreciate you being my guest. And I want to say thank you for tuning in to our very first episode of Coffee Break Chats with Jen. I will have a Facebook page with the same name very soon, and I will take guest requests. I'll take questions, any feedback you want to give us. And thank you so much. And it was a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.